Hey Karate Chops, if you're new here, welcome. There was just a song on the radio, I'd never heard it before, and it was going, all I wanna be is to be happy. And I thought it was fitting for the topic of this video. So today I would like to talk to you guys about overcoming chronic pain and symptom loops and anxiety, OCD loops, all of the fun things that just make it a real joy to be human. So if you don't know my story, the SparkNotes version is that for over half a decade, I could not laugh or speak or breathe without pain, which if you've never experienced anything like that, I would say I wouldn't recommend it. And some other things I experienced were just the pain spreading to various areas of my body. There were years of hyper focus on my breathing and throat and just repetitive thoughts all centered around the body and fixing symptoms. So it was a real blast. But something when I was really struggling, I used to say is that I just want to be able to obviously speak and breathe again without pain. But also when I was going to a lot of the Dr. Joe Dispenza events, I love that community. I love his work. You'll meet some of the nicest people in your life at those events. And I used to say, I just want to be able to laugh without pain all the time. And I remember some of those lovely humans, what they would kind of envision for me. I remember they made some type of graphic, and it was just something like Christine is standing at the top of a mountain, laughing and singing without pain, something along those lines. And it was a really nice image to hold on to. And so the reason I'm bringing this up today is that, as you saw at the start of the video, I was at the top of a mountain, or I guess we could call it a sand dune. I was genuinely laughing, not like that fake laughter we might do when we're really struggling with chronic symptoms or chronic pain or anxiety. So I really like that video. It's genuine laughter, no pain. And so I'm opening this way, not to just delve into my full story, but to hopefully talk about how it might apply to you if you're navigating hyper focus on really any part of your body, or just obsessive thoughts about it, obsessive thoughts about how to get rid of symptoms and fix, and how to hopefully get a little bit of comfort or relief from that, maybe by me just sharing some of my own experiences. So this video is not about sandboarding, even though it's something I wanted to do for a really long time, and I was so happy to be able to do it. It's actually going to focus on how ideally we could call it the brain, or maybe our subconscious mind, the nervous system, to stop treating every little symptom or sensation, or even thought as a threat. So if you've ever spent hours and hours and hours Googling symptoms or in various Facebook groups with different labels about what conditions you might have, and just posts about how to fix it, and you're just online for hours and you're wondering, when did my life change to make this a full-time career? And it's not our fault. It's so subconscious. I know my boy Eckhart Tolle might describe these repetitive thought loops as just the ego or a repetitive stream of thoughts. We could describe it as an OCD loop if we're thinking about mind-body syndrome. I think it's such a subconscious mechanism, and when I look at my experience and think about John Sarno's work and people who have followed up with that, I go, oh, he was onto something. I think subconsciously, perhaps if we either went through some scary experiences at one point, or even just were dealing with minor life stressors, it manifests maybe differently in different people, but our brains go, oh, a protection is needed. I have to protect this person from the big emotions they're feeling, whether it's about something in their current life or something that already happened. And I think it turns on as they talk about this protective mechanism, which is repetitive thoughts about the body, the hyper focus on, in my case, it was definitely like my throat and breathing, and then pain in general. And I think our brains are doing that in kind of a faulty way of trying really, really hard to protect us. So again, if your body feels really stuck in threat mode and just, again, you question, when has Googling all of my symptoms become a full-time career, which, by the way, was my brain for years, or subconscious. And you tried to make all of your rounds and tried all of the things, all of the treatments, or even quick fixes, or every doctor you can imagine. And maybe you heard some pretty scary words like incurable or can be managed, or, treated, which in my humble opinion, based on my own experiences, were never very helpful at all. It's just kind of perpetuating fear. But if this seems to describe you, then hopefully this video can help a little bit. And so I'm really grateful to some of the doctors who are kind of branching out and pointing out that so many of the things we experience are likely caused by repressed emotions or even traumatic events, rather than that we have something just terribly wrong with us that can't be fixed or cured. I prefer the much more hopeful perspectives. And I think sometimes it helps to have it explained to us in a way that our nervous systems can actually hear it. So I'm going to attempt to do that and show you guys some ways that maybe the chronic pain or fear loop kicks in, and then ways that we could get a little relief or comfort from that. So for a while, as I mentioned, I was very, very excited to go sandboarding. I did it in Dubai. It was an activity I'd been looking forward to for so long. And after I went sandboarding, which is basically you sit on a snowboard-like device at the top of some sand dunes, and someone at the top pushes you down the sand dunes, and it's like a little roller coaster ride. And then basically the people at the top are kind of yelling from the top of the mountain for you to like hurry back up it, even though it was really hot, and you kind of have to quickly take your sandboard back up this mountain. And basically get a nice little workout. But I did it twice because I loved it so much, and so I wanted to go again. And so after I did this activity, I was sitting in the hotel bar in Dubai where I was staying, and this very nice bartender there who had moved from Cuba to Dubai with his wife, and then he said he had a young daughter. He started to tell me, wow, there was actually someone sitting here at the bar a couple days ago, and he went sandboarding on, the desert safari, and he actually ended up breaking his arm, which is horrible, and I definitely hope he's okay now. But there's a reason that I'm bringing this story up to you guys, and that this bartender told me that story after I had already done the activity. Because I was thinking about, say I had not done the activity yet, and this bartender just casually dropped in, oh, by the way, someone's sitting right where you were sitting the other day, engaged in the same activity, and broken limb was the result. My brain might not have loved that. I was very excited for this activity, so knowing me, I probably still would have wanted to do it, but I think of scenarios like that and how perhaps then my brain would have become a lot more wary of going sandboarding and gone, alert, alert, threat, ah! And I think this is exactly what happens when we're flooded with so much information in today's world about our bodies and things that can happen to it and stories. We nowadays live with so much information online, and just even the visits we go to, we keep learning new things and things that can happen or go wrong. I know Dr. Joe refers to a lot of the labels maybe doctors will throw out, or the things they'll say, as like a voodoo curse, because sometimes, again, words like incurable or live with this forever are obviously very scary. And a lot of times too, I think of Eckhart talking about how as humans we're almost conditioned to think that more information and knowledge will help us or protect us in some way. But if you're like me, it's likely doing the opposite. Usually for the anxious brain that's trying very hard to protect us, getting all of this new information and material is just giving us, or giving the brain, new content that it feels like it needs to protect us from, and it's kind of keeping it on high alert, like, oh no, here's everything that can go wrong, and here's all of the steps that I'm gonna have to take to fix it. So again, if you don't know my story yet, the kind of SparkNotes version is that I went to, I think, over like 50 doctors and tried all of the things, whether it was injections or ketamine infusions or, the medications they give you for anxiety, and this and that, and this procedure, and chiropractic, and anything you can imagine, to try and fix some pretty debilitating symptoms. And we're doing that because when this loop kind of turns on in our brain, the symptoms are so debilitating and it completely takes over, and it's horrifying and scary. But what we're not recognizing subconsciously is that doing these fixing things, finding one method after the other, and I understand why, because often the idea of like fixing something quickly is very appealing. That would be so nice. But what it's doing subconsciously is it's just kind of keeping our mind in high alert mode and going like, danger, danger, there's something really, really wrong with us that we must correct, right? And even if I were listening to this when I was really in the loop, it's like we want to believe that the fix is almost within ourselves. But then the loop kicks back in, and then we go search for more things and more, and it takes a while for our sweet little subconscious mind to feel safe again. And so if you've ever become hyper aware of your breathing or your throat and you're trying to fix it and monitor it every 2 seconds, you might know that it's not the most fun experience. Rather than, just letting it be and knowing that we could breathe however we want and just kind of go about our day. But the hyper focus on it becomes really debilitating, and it's not even our throats that become the issue after a while. It's just the obsessive focus there that would, almost drive anyone insane after a while. And so it got to the point that my brain eventually started to treat every little sensation as a threat, whether it was breathing or speaking or driving or sitting or laying down, and just that hyper focus would all be here and then on the body. And it is tough. And so the reason I think that I'm sharing the story about sandboarding and the story that bartender told me when I was having my water on the rocks was significant to me, because I thought, like, oh gosh, I wonder if I would have done the activity if I had known that in advance. And I was also thinking of a story that one of the doctors who really helped me told me today, and he has a very strong belief in, our minds and the subconscious creating a lot of, or I would argue in my experience, I think all of, or many chronic symptoms. And he was telling me a story of how his son is about to go skiing somewhere, and the son said to him, just please don't tell me about any of the things that can go wrong. I don't want to know. And I think in our current society, that's what happens when we keep going to new doctor's visits or new appointments. And then even if they're well-meaning, humans sometimes, especially in the medical field, and not all of them, this is why this doctor I'm bringing up really resonates with me, because I like when people have a strong belief that, we kind of have the power to recover. But I think about how when we keep hearing things like, oh yeah, let's try this, and we become this whole lab rat experience. I don't know if that makes sense, but, or our own test subjects, and our life starts to center around it. And then we hear all those words I've been bringing up, like chronic or incurable. That's inherently scary. And I know so often in the mind-body field, we'll hear just go back to living your life. And then we try that and we're still suffering really badly and things feel debilitating, and we kind of just end up giving up again. But I think a lot of times our subconscious is kind of going, there are things maybe in our life that we can adjust little by little, even if it's 0.1% per day, to just make our lives slightly better or easier, and to communicate safety to ourselves or our brains. Whether that's, I know in a lot of the pain reprocessing courses I took, they'll say, even little things like making sure to go to the bathroom the minute you notice you have to go. If your body is alerting you that you're hungry, taking just a little time to enjoy something that you love or a snack. Anything that's helping us to get out of high alert mode and make our lives feel better can help a lot. I really like Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And that's, I think, in big part what I've continued to have to do is just shifting so many habits. And people don't always like to hear that at first, because whether we want to call it the ego or the OCD loop or the repetitive thought stream, as Eckhart might say, it loves to cling on to the idea that something is wrong and we need to fix it and we need to make it our whole mission. But the good news about changing habits little by little is it starts to feel really good. And we start to go like, hey, little buddy, you're safe here. You're okay now. And our brains then recognize that there's no longer this threat going on. We could just go back to our lives. So if you're feeling like your body has just completely turned against you, and I know it feels scary and terrifying and awful, but it helped me a lot to recognize, wow, my brain and subconscious were trying really, really hard to try and protect me, which in a way is kind of sweet. But the good news is that form of protection can be unlearned. And you don't necessarily need more fixing. You just need to find little ways that you can kind of teach yourself that you're safe and that you've got you. And that can kind of help our brains with time, and a lot of time in my case, and a lot of habit shifting, but shift out of that very hyper protective mode. I think of some of Dr. Joe's meditations where he'll say something like, if you return to your previous habits, or like the condition might return, something like that. And once you do start to shift things in your own life, I think for me then it really started to click. And so even with the sandboarding example, I'm not saying like go out and go sandboarding tomorrow or if you don't want to. And I'm definitely not saying that activities like that, cannot be dangerous, or I think with anything really involves risk, or it could involve risk. But the point is that risk is not the same as danger. And with a lot of chronic symptoms or repetitive thoughts, our brains begin treating every little sensation as the most dangerous, scary thing in the world. But slowly showing and teaching our brains that actually these are just normal sensations that, like the people in the pain reprocessing world and the mind-body world talk about, our brains just become really hyper vigilant and is trying to amplify all of those signals because it thinks that it needs to. So even though the anxious brain can change these neutral sensations into danger, the best news ever is that can be unlearned. And it really starts with just shifting habits, even if it's just 1 minute of our day that we change something to feel a little bit better. Because I think when we first learn about the mind-body connection, we might get really excited and we jump right in right away and we say we just want to change our whole lives immediately. And our brains might still register that as a threat, trying to shift everything at once. And so that's why I've learned that with time, I joke that my spirit animal is a turtle. But changing things little by little is what I kind of needed to shift out of that mode. And it's been really nice just to be able to laugh at the top of a mountain without pain, and speak and breathe and just interact and engage in life and enjoy it. The last thing I'll say, a lot of people who reach out to me will ask, they'll say it's hard for me to ignore that people have pointed out there are physical symptoms here, or there is inflammation. And it's funny because in my case, a lot of practitioners, they'd have all different perspectives. Some would say it looked fine here, some would say it looked like the worst thing ever. And it's easy to then obsess over that. And so I think what can be helpful is recognizing maybe there could be a ton of inflammation or maybe not, but the point is that either way, our bodies always generally want to heal. They're just kind of following the input from the thoughts in our mind. And it's really those thoughts and that repetitive thought stream that I think, in my case, kept a lot of the stuff going on alive. So teaching ourselves safety little by little can really start to shift things. And if you're dealing with any of these symptoms, or even just symptoms in other parts of your body, I really hope that just sharing some of my own experiences offers even just a tiny ounce of relief, because I know how good it felt for me to have those moments laughing from the top of that sand dune and that mountain. So I'm giving all of you guys a very big hug, and I'm sending lots of warmth and comfort. If you're dealing with any of this right now, I know it can feel extremely isolating and scary, but I do hope people know that in many instances, or at least if your story sounds similar to what I experienced, relief is definitely possible. And I believe that you can feel better. So if you found this helpful and you'd like to like and subscribe, that would be great. If you found this the most useless thing you've ever listened to in your life, then I would recommend not subscribing, unless you want to be tortured more. Anyways, I hope you guys all have a really good rest of your week, and to talk to everyone soon.
So far away.